Respect is not something you can demand from others through words or expectations alone. It's something that must be earned, steadily and silently, through how you live your life, the principles you stand by, and the standards you uphold for yourself when no one else is watching. At the core of genuine respect lies integrity, discipline, and an unwavering sense of self-respect. These are not traits that appear overnight or under pressure. They are cultivated through your habits, your consistency, and your willingness to hold yourself accountable. If you find yourself engaging in behaviors that corrode these values, whether it's making excuses, procrastinating, or trying to appease others at the expense of your own dignity, those habits must be confronted and eliminated. Otherwise, the respect you long for will always remain just out of reach. Let me be brutally honest with you. Most people will never respect you, no matter how hard you work or how much you sacrifice. That's the tough reality. You can pour your energy into pleasing others, bend over backward to be liked, and show up for everyone but yourself, yet still be dismissed, overlooked, or taken for granted. Why does this happen? Because respect isn't simply about the things you do. It's about who you are at your core and how your everyday behaviors reflect that identity. I say this not from theory, but from personal experience. I once believed that being agreeable, polite, and endlessly available would naturally win me the respect of those around me. Instead, I became invisible. People didn't admire me for being kind. They took advantage of my passivity and saw me as someone who lacked conviction. I spent years trapped in a cycle of confusion, wondering why I wasn't taken seriously, why my efforts weren't reciprocated, or why I was consistently the one left behind. The turning point came when I stopped blaming others and started removing the internal obstacles sabotaging my own worth. I let go of the need for external validation, stopped making excuses for why I wasn't showing up fully, and chose to hold myself to a higher standard. The shift wasn't immediate, but the more I respected myself, the more others began to mirror that respect. People could sense the change, not just in how I behaved, but in the energy I carried. The world started to treat me differently because I was finally treating myself with seriousness and care. Here's the deeper truth most people avoid. Respect doesn't originate from others. It originates from within. If you don't expect more from yourself, why would anyone else? If you're not willing to confront your own limitations and actively work to overcome them, how can you expect the world to take you seriously? Excuses, for instance, are one of the most destructive habits you can hold on to. They masquerade as explanations, but are really just shields you use to avoid responsibility. Whether it's blaming traffic for your lateness or pointing fingers at circumstances beyond your control, excuses strip you of power. I used to think a valid reason made everything okay. But over time, I realized that no matter how sound my excuse sounded, people still saw me as unreliable, and they were right. Because at the end of the day, I wasn't where I was supposed to be. That was on me. I remember a colleague once looking me in the eye after I'd arrived late, again, and saying, "Why didn't you just leave earlier?" It was a simple question, but it shattered the illusion I had built around my own reliability. Every time I gave an excuse, I was essentially saying, I'm not in control of my own life. And that's the fastest way to lose respect. People admire those who take ownership, even when they fall short. It's not about perfection. It's about accountability. The moment I stopped deflecting and started owning my mistakes, something shifted. Friends started trusting me again. Colleagues began taking me more seriously. Even my own self-talk changed from one of defensiveness to one of responsibility. That internal shift paved the way for external respect. Excuses are not just words, they're a mentality. They keep you locked in the mindset of a victim, always at the mercy of circumstances. But when you decide to be the one in charge, even if it means admitting fault, that's when you begin to earn genuine respect, not just from others, but from yourself. People can forgive failure. What they struggle to forgive is denial of responsibility. The same goes for laziness. If you consistently choose inaction over effort, don't be surprised when people stop respecting you. And frankly, they shouldn't. It might sound harsh, but it's true. Potential means nothing without movement. No one is impressed by what you could do. They respect what you actually do. I once thought I could rely on my natural abilities, doing the bare minimum and still skating by, because I was smart enough. But it became painfully clear that coasting through life doesn't earn admiration. It earns pity and eventually dismissal. I remember working on a group project where everyone else was putting in the effort, staying late, refining their work. Meanwhile, I thought my minor contributions would be enough. When we finally presented, the gap in commitment was obvious. I didn't just let the group down. I showed them that I wasn't someone to count on. That kind of disappointment doesn't just go unnoticed. It leaves an impression. Laziness is visible, whether you admit it or not. And the more you lean into it, the more people stop expecting anything meaningful from you. And when people no longer expect anything of you, they stop seeing you as someone worth respecting. What I've learned is that respect is built on effort, day in and day out. It's not about always winning or never making mistakes. It's about showing up, being consistent, and pushing through when it's hard. That's what people admire. That's what builds trust. And trust is the foundation of respect. So if you've been coasting, hiding behind excuses, or letting laziness define you, it's time for a wake-up call. You don't earn respect by asking for it. You earn it by becoming someone who lives like they deserve it. Equally detrimental to respect is the act of taking credit for someone else's work. It's one of the most corrosive habits in any setting, whether personal, academic, or professional. Not only does it rob someone of recognition, but also reveals your own insecurity and lack of integrity. I know this because I've done it. Early in my career, desperate to be noticed, I subtly angled a team presentation to highlight my own contributions while downplaying the efforts of a colleague who had gone above and beyond. I didn't lie outright, but I carefully chose words that put me in the best light. Initially, it felt validating to receive praise. But the truth always has a way of surfacing. My colleague realized what happened, and before long, so did others. The admiration I had gained quickly turned to distrust. That experience taught me that respect cannot be built on manipulation. Taking credit for someone else's work doesn't just hurt the person you took from. It damages your reputation in the eyes of everyone who witnesses it. People stop seeing you as collaborative or trustworthy. They see someone who's self-serving and opportunistic. And those reputations are hard to shake. Worse yet, when you habitually seek validation through dishonest means, you're reinforcing a belief that your own abilities aren't enough. That kind of self-doubt undermines not just your relationships, but your own growth. Authenticity and humility are the true foundations of respect. Giving credit where it's due shows that you're confident in your own contributions and generous enough to recognize the strengths of others. On the flip side, stealing recognition not only crushes someone else's morale, but also isolates you from future collaboration and trust. I've watched talented individuals lose promotions, peers' confidence, and long-standing friendships over this very habit. Respect, once lost, is painstakingly hard to regain. So if you want to build lasting credibility and strong relationships, let your integrity speak louder than your ambition. Laziness is more than just a lack of energy or motivation. It's a subtle and damaging form of self-sabotage. It's not always about being physically tired. It's often rooted in a mindset that convinces you it's okay to drift through life without giving your best. You tell yourself that minimal effort is enough, that coasting is acceptable, that comfort is a reward in itself. But each time you choose laziness, you're making a silent decision to shrink your potential. You're prioritizing momentary ease over long-term growth, and you're signaling to yourself and to everyone else that growth just isn't worth the discomfort. The hard truth is this: comfort doesn't earn respect. Growth does. Effort does. People don't admire those who avoid the grind. They admire those who embrace it, even when it's difficult. I had to learn this lesson through experience. I once believed that taking the path of least resistance was smart, that I was being efficient by avoiding the hard stuff. I thought I could outweed effort, but I was wrong. Success doesn't come from talent alone or intelligence or charm. It comes from showing up again and again, especially when it's hard. It comes from resilience, from staying committed when things get uncomfortable. The people who truly command respect are the ones who fight through fatigue, who take initiative, and who deliver regardless of how they feel. Laziness, in contrast, sends a clear message: you're unwilling to try. And if you're unwilling to push yourself, why would anyone else believe in you? You can't hide laziness. It reveals itself in your body language, your conversations, your level of preparation, and how you tackle challenges. People notice. They can sense when you're just getting by. They can tell when you're phoning it in. And over time, they treat you accordingly. They hesitate to trust you with serious responsibilities. They don't turn to you in moments that require leadership or strength. Laziness strips you of credibility, often before you realize it. Now, let's talk about something just as overlooked but equally telling: your personal appearance. Most people underestimate how much their outward presentation reflects their inner mindset. The way you look doesn't just impact how others see you. It says everything about how you see yourself. If you neglect your appearance, you're sending a message loud and clear. I don't respect myself enough to put in the effort. And if that's the energy you're putting out, why would anyone else offer you respect in return? Yes, it might sound superficial to judge someone based on how they look. Ideally, people would look past appearances and see the real you. But in the real world, first impressions matter, and appearance is a massive part of that impression. I used to dismiss this. I believe people should value my ideas and personality regardless of how I looked. I'd roll out of bed, throw on wrinkled clothes, and show up as is. I thought I was being authentic, but in reality, I was being careless. I didn't realize that what I considered real came across as indifferent or even disrespectful. I'll never forget the day I walked into an important event looking like I hadn't put in any thought or effort. My clothes were crumpled, my hair was unkempt, and I looked and felt like someone who didn't care. And that's exactly how people treated me. I could feel the shift in the room, the lack of acknowledgement, the glazed-over reactions. Meanwhile, those who had taken the time to dress well and carry themselves with intention immediately commanded attention. It hit me hard. My appearance wasn't just about vanity. It was about how I showed up in the world. Your appearance is nonverbal communication. It says, I'm serious. I respect this space, this moment, and myself. Taking care of your grooming, your hygiene, and your overall look isn't about impressing others. It's about expressing self-respect. People respond to that energy. They gravitate toward it. They trust it. When someone enters a room looking confident, composed, and pulled together, it sets a tone of capability. It says, I take myself seriously and you should too. Neglecting your appearance tells a different story. It whispers, I don't care, and people pick up on that. They assume you'll bring that same neglect to your work, your relationships, your responsibilities. But when you show effort, when you take pride in how you present yourself, it signals discipline. It tells others that you hold yourself to a standard, and that inspires trust and respect. After that humbling experience, I made a deliberate shift. I began dressing with thought, paying attention to details like cleanliness and grooming. The change in how others treated me was immediate and dramatic. I was suddenly seen, heard, and respected. But more importantly, I felt different. I respected myself more. I stood taller, spoke with more conviction, and owned my presence. The truth is, how you carry yourself influences how the world receives you. It may sound harsh, but appearance does matter. Always has, always will. First impressions stick. If you want respect, you need to look like someone who commands it. Taking care of your appearance isn't shallow, it's strategic. It's a form of self-discipline, a visual cue that says, I value who I am. When you make that effort, the world reflects it back to you. So here's the bottom line. Respect starts from within, and it radiates outward. If you're not taking care of yourself, if you're showing up messy, unprepared, or disengaged, don't be surprised when the world mirrors that energy back at you. Take the time. Make the effort. Dress with intention. Groom with care. Show the world the best version of yourself. When you respect yourself first, others won't have a choice. They'll follow your lead. Boundaries are not a suggestion. They are a non-negotiable element of healthy relationships. When you dismiss or overlook someone's boundaries, whether emotional, physical, or social, you communicate, intentionally or not, that their needs, comfort, and sense of self don't matter to you. This erosion of respect is subtle at first, but becomes impossible to ignore over time. I learned this lesson through personal missteps. For the longest time, I equated constant involvement in someone's life with caring. I thought checking in persistently, offering advice unsolicited, or inserting myself into situations showed concern and commitment. But in truth, I was smothering people. What I mistook for support was actually a disregard for their autonomy. One friendship stands out in particular. A close friend began to distance herself, and I couldn't understand why. I called daily, sent endless texts, and involved myself in all her concerns, thinking I was being helpful. Eventually, she told me, "I just need some space. It feels like you don't get that." That moment hit me hard. I had violated her boundaries repeatedly, and in doing so, I lost her trust and damaged the relationship. This made me realize that respecting someone's boundaries is not about distancing yourself emotionally. It's about honoring their humanity. Boundaries are not walls. They are guidelines that protect a person's emotional, mental, and physical well-being. Ignoring them is essentially saying, "My needs come before your comfort," and that's a fast track to being viewed as inconsiderate and untrustworthy. True respect means recognizing others as individuals who have a right to say no, who can choose how close they want others to be, and who need space without justification. Once I began respecting those boundaries, listening more, intervening less, allowing others to invite me in instead of barging in, everything shifted. My relationships became more genuine, more balanced, and most importantly, rooted in mutual respect. People began to seek out my presence instead of withdrawing from it. This dynamic applies in the workplace as well. Constantly interrupting a colleague who values independence or overwhelming a boss with excessive updates shows a lack of awareness and disregard for their professional boundaries. It's not just inconvenient, it's disrespectful. Boundaries, when honored, cultivate trust, which in turn leads to stronger, more resilient connections. Disregard them, and you chip away at trust, eventually leaving only discomfort and distance in your wake. Learning to identify and honor both explicit and subtle boundaries is one of the most powerful ways to earn and maintain respect.